Kia ora koutou katoa. It's been really important to get to know your work and your research and the links that you've been able to draw, the dots that you've been able to draw between the drivers of violence, the historic, political and ongoing violence of colonisation, how that is linked to the ongoing drive of capitalism and how that is part of the dynamics of violence in this country. And so I'm really pleased to just have a really quick bit of an update about what we're doing and maybe be able to draw some further links to your work. When your research and your report came through to us and came through to me, it was really refreshing. For far too long, and the reason why violence has continued and has become intergenerational after intergenerational is because we haven't drawn those dots. We haven't had an analysis of power, which is behind violence perpetuating and continuing. And so whenever I get to see that work and whenever I get to hear that community analysis and voice coming through, it just helps me so much to not be a lone voice in being really clear that the only way that we are going to eliminate violence is by addressing the genesis and the dynamics and the causes. So just wanted to firstly thank you all for being involved in pulling that critical analysis through. The other parts of addressing violence is to be really clear about accountability for all who cause harm, including the state. And you know, it's really, we don't even need to research, it's very, very clear from the voices of survivors, victims of violence, that the state in many, many different ways, not the least, we are hearing from the Royal Commission of Inquiry into State Abuse right now, it's really clear that the community will not let me stand up and do this job without acknowledging in an ongoing way the violence of the state, the ongoing impacts of harm that our agencies perpetuate, and therefore what we are doing about it to firstly recognise that harm and then stop it from happening. And having a minister is one of those first but really significant steps to actually making it a priority in the first place. Whereas previously we have had to deal with an embedded approach which isolates our departments and our agencies into thinking that we can continue in a sort of a segmented, fractured way to deal with issues in the community without understanding that they're all connected, without understanding that unless we have good housing, unless people have access to incomes and can take care of their families, mental health care, addiction support, education, justice systems, and so on, that uplift people's connections and identities, then we are not going to truly address violence. And so my role in launching Te Aurere Kura at the end of last year, a comprehensive 25-year strategy to eliminate violence, was to first of all recognise that we've got to bring all of the parts of the picture together, all of the agencies together in a way that has never been done before. So it was actually a massive feat just to get agreement for a strategy and an action plan, to try and wrangle 10 different government and public agencies, plus 4 other sort of associated member agencies, to try and wrangle all of that together, all of the ministers across those agencies together to try and get us to agree to any sort of a starting point, plus 40 actions in the first 2 to 4 year action plan. That in itself was a massive piece of wrangling, and in actual fact a bit of wrangling that hadn't succeeded before, and in fact in the very preceding government term, despite best efforts. It didn't have a minister to take leadership of doing the wrangling. It didn't have the status of a minister to take leadership of doing the wrangling. And so I have to tell you, it was a heck of a thing to actually finally launch that with the Prime Minister in December last year, because at one point, at many points, not at one point, it felt like we weren't even going to be able to get collective agreement on where we will start. One of those issues, which again in your research that has come through, was the importance of recognising the violence of colonisation and how that impacts on the work we do today, and that we were able to acknowledge this in Te Aorere Kura, that we were able to get a firm agreement that we can't do this work without that acknowledgement. That was huge, and yet we've barely begun. So with that, and since the launch, all of the actions in the 40 actions in the first action plan, it's only the first action plan, are underway. We know that we're going to have to continue to test and learn, and this is again, this is again what the models and the work that you're all doing, and that understanding that the only way that we can do this work is to engage and mobilise the community to lead it with the support of a government structure, government infrastructure, I guess scaffolding and coordination, because that has also been where we have failed, is we haven't been joined up in our thinking or our approach. We haven't properly empowered community. We haven't affirmed the power of community that is already here to lead. So this came through in the recent Family Violence Death Review Committee report, the latest one, which pointed to the duty to care, the government duty to care, as quite different to the duty of care, which has been the paternal top-down approach, where government knows best and holds the wealth and the resource, and the duty of care is flipping all of that paternalising approach and upholds the expertise of every community. And this is exactly again the work that you've done, and you've said very clearly, disabled people must be supported to lead work for disabled people. Rainbow people must be supported, and so on and so forth. That hasn't been happening at all. And so since the report, those actions have continued, have begun, as well as we've managed to establish a Tangata Whenua Ministerial Advisory Group. I am really clear that they are a leadership group. Tangata Whenua called for an equal relationship. Well, it's not yet, actually, and I'm really clear about that, but it's a really good start for a direct relationship with me as a minister, whereas previously Tangata Whenua felt like they did not have a relationship directly with ministers. So we've got superb people on that group, people who have the decades and lifetimes full of experience, skill, and as survivors, but also people who get the machinery of government, and also people who have the respect of their own grassroots communities and have that accountability. They're not the only, of course, they're not the only engagement. That we have to be really clear that the entirety of Te Aorere Kura is working with Tangata Whenua at every level, as we need to be clear about the leadership for disabled people, rainbow people, older people, ethnic communities, women, the very groups who have been underserved, or actually that's a kind word, directly trampled on. And so Te Aorere Kura is, in my solid hope and opinion and discussion with the sector with communities is one of the biggest and best chances we've had for a whole of system, whole of community, long-term, enduring commitment to resolving the issues and for the vision of everyone being able to live safe lives and lives free of violence. It properly acknowledges the issues and it sets up pathways and steps towards achieving it. It calls out what has to change and it puts in place the shifts. It acknowledges what has been going wrong for a long, long time. And so I guess I could probably leave that there. I think one of the important points to note that I've missed is one of the first steps out the door is for a long time we've all known that we haven't had a consistent supported workforce in this work. And when I say workforce, I'm really broad in that. So it's people on the front line of family violence, sexual violence work, prevention and responses work. But actually we need to make sure that our hardworking teachers have got the tools to appropriately and safely respond, that they can identify violence and that they have the tools and the ability to be able to give the best help they can. Right now that's not the case for all of our children. They do not always receive, they are not always even identified as needing support, not suspension. And that the punishment approaches across our system have been far too prevalent, and those are not trauma-informed practices. And so the workforces, the frameworks that we launched alongside the sector a few months ago, they have been 20 plus years in the making. They have been led and driven by the sector, and they are one of the first steps of having a sort of baseline of minimum understanding and capability. That is the least that we should be expecting in our health education, police, courts, ACC, and so yes, we want to see those tools and frameworks utilised everywhere. The first step is we've put them out there. We've got the starting agencies picking those up with a plan to roll them through their workforce. We've got the sector experts rolling them through as well, and to be able to sort of tell us how is it going, how does it actually work on the ground, and what more is needed. And then of course we want to, I've heard this from the sector, we want to make this not a voluntary idea. We want to be really clear that these are the minimum expectations for people to be safe when and if they put their hand up for help, no matter what agency or workforce they reach out to or have engagement with. So I think that is one of the sort of big other pieces of work that we're concentrating on at the moment. Some of you may know that we had our first annual hui, so every year to be able to check in on Te Aotearoa and whether it's actually doing anything, is pulling together the sector, community, tangata whenua, agencies, ministers, leadership at all levels and grassroots organisations and workers at all levels. We had our first one, it moved online for safety reasons, and it blew us all away that we had over 900 people interested and coming to over different times over a 2-day period. And one of the big things again was accountability, as well as the importance of focusing in the prevention space. And also another big thing was focusing on how do we get communities up and moving, what sort of support is needed for the most enduring responses at the community and regional level. And those are two of the particular actions that I wanted to identify to be able to uphold the work that you're all doing. There's many more intersections across the action plan and across the strategy with what you're doing, but those two in particular I wanted to identify. So I think I'll leave it there, and I'm sure there's more ongoing audio to have this morning. So
It's so beautiful to see the recognition of the voices that went into generating this report, and to actually see that being walked through. So really appreciate your Correro in demonstrating to us, if you will, how these voices, particularly in terms of community agency and accountability to community, are being held through. What I thought I will do is just give a brief overview that captures broadly the theory underlying the work, and really then let our community advisory group voices speak. So, for us, when we think about community-led, culture-centered violence prevention, and you have articulated this so powerfully, really at the heart of it is asking this question: to address violence, how do we address the driving structures of capitalism, colonialism, patriarchy, and whiteness? Particularly salient in our intersectional experiences of the research is the whiteness that holds up the values of the dominant culture as normative and universal values, and which in itself works to erase community voices at the intersections, because it continually questions, second guesses, and gaslights the expertise, the lived experience, and the knowledge. So then I suppose for our advisory group, the question has to be, how do we take back the voice, especially when we are continually facing these many walls and layers of silencing? And related to that, how do we sustain the momentum and the spirit when one is being second guessed that you cannot do this, and then really get up, pick up from there, and then continue to walk the journey. So hopefully we'll get the chance to see how that has actually been so transformative for us. So when we talk about voice for us, then this really directly connects with the amazing work of Moana Jackson with Mark Dikemai, and really thinking through how do we transform democracy by anchoring it in Te Tiriti, by anchoring it in the ownership of Tangata Whenua, but connected to that by connecting it with the experiences of communities at diverse margins. Because one of the things we find is that the systematic erasure that is experienced by Tangata Whenua, it offers us a powerful anchor to engage in dialogue when we come as migrants, as ethnic communities, as rainbow ethnic communities, at those marginalized intersections. And connected to that, then the challenge we have experienced ourselves in doing this work is how do we create a dialogic space open that doesn't shut down, that doesn't erase, and how do we approach the conversations with humility so that it opens up the space to what we call in this kaupapa as the margins of the margins, those voices that are inevitably going to get erased because we are coming around and forming a cultural essence that helps us organize. So that recognition then guides us in asking who is not present in the space, which voices are not reflected here, and how can we invite those voices in. So just earlier today, Najin and I, we were talking, which is like, what we are doing so far is great, but it seems that we are not really including these and these voices. And I suppose, that kind of critical reflexivity is so vital to really thinking through how do we open up the spaces. This is the model that has guided our work, and really one of the most powerful things about this model is that it has emerged from our community advisory groups, and you will see today in the presentations how the community-led education, community hui, media campaigns are some of the components in building the change process. But at the heart of it is that underlying question of mobilization that you talked about, Minister, which is that how do we mobilize communities? It's lovely to see the recognition that there has to be an infrastructure in place. And added to that, then our question is, what happens if the infrastructure goes missing? Because we cannot, it is so powerful to see your articulation of the state and the need to change the state. And at the same time, I suppose from the community standpoint, because of lived experiences and past histories, there is this recognition that we cannot always trust the state to recognize and not perpetuate the violence. So for the community, the question is, how do we build that kind of structural resilience so that we can keep sustaining and mobilizing to push against the state if need be? So we will begin with our Hybrid Advisory Group doing their presentation, and that campaign is called Aroha Pite Tangata.
Hon Minister, Marama Davidson, it is truly an honour to stand here before you all, so thank you. I would like to take this opportunity to quickly introduce myself again. I see Hore and two of my amazing team members, Ms. Krishna Kerr and Mr. Tutu Mutirini. We as a collective, along with many outstanding members, have joined together and have now created what we call the Hybrid Community Ropu, a community part of Manawatu. For the past 3 years, we have come together united to collaborate and discuss many ideas and creative strategies that have taken us on an amazing journey and different pathways. Over these recent years, we have embarked upon very many topics such as photo voice, family violence and sexual violence prevention, and now social cohesion and anti-racism. During the year of 2020 and 2021, we have joined forces to discuss ideas around our photo voice and family and sexual violence prevention and how and what this would look like moving forward. Did we see this as a need in our community? Yes, most definitely we do. But to make this sustainable, we needed to develop a concept to try and get the message across, specifically where it concerns our ageing and our disability community. Primarily our Māori and Pacifica people. Under the umbrella of Community Po, we developed a workshop program that would educate our aged and our disability care around how to stop family and sexual violence within our community and what this will look like to them and us. We named this Ngā Pou e Whā Violence Prevention Program. In the month of May through to September 2022, 4 members such as myself and throughout the beautiful Wahine were asked to facilitate and educate a program that would commence Monday to Friday, where 2 sessions would run per day, morning and afternoon. As facilitators, we would need to educate and teach our group sessions 5 days a week over the period of 3 months. The Family and Sexual Violence Prevention Program was designed to support, educate, resource, teach and inspire our aged and disabled community on how to prevent family and sexual violence and what to do when you witness family and sexual violence. Photo voice was also a part of this concept as well. Before the COVID hit nationwide, Photo Voice was going to be held events to showcase real life stories and experiences through the lens of other people's images, telling their stories and their own personal experiences they have had in life. Many of our members who attended weekly sessions carried a lot on my mind, many were hurt. They presented themselves with past trauma and conflicted issues that played a massive impact upon their lives. Many of their mana had been trampled upon and had come from all walks of life. we were able to connect them, with themselves and us as facilitators and other members of the community. We had covered many topics such as underlying sexual and family violence, traditional Māori values and colonisation, along with many more. We created and strengthened strong connections while teaching our aged and disabled community. As facilitators, we were truly moved and inspired by our people we support. We were able to build beautiful foundations and respectful relationships with our aged and disabled community, and they too felt so humbled and at peace. Many who attended went home feeling more supported, more knowledgeable, by having more of an understanding of the concept behind this topic. The majority of our 51 members of our community who attended our workshop and education programs highly recommended that we sustain this need and carry out our wonderful mahi, many of whom would like to return and see other workshops being created in the near future, as they felt this was an opportunity of a lifetime. In conclusion, as a rōpū, we are passionate and motivated to try and make a difference within our people, communities and ourselves, creating better changes and shedding more light on the topic of family and sexual violence prevention in order to break the cycle for our future generation. So, so just have a quick quote. Our old people are being forgotten and our most vulnerable feel lost at sea. This is how many of our aged and disabled communities feel. So on behalf of our rōpū, we'd just like to say thank you to you all. We appreciate your time and we are grateful for this opportunity to be here. Once again, thank you. Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa.
What's also beautiful about your role is how it's sort of fit into other connections, so the work that you're doing now. You want to talk about that? With youth violence prevention?
Oh, yes, sorry. So at the moment we've just started a new project called Social Cohesion, which is anti-racism. So together as a rōpū, we've come together just over the last maybe month. So we're just kind of new to it, where we've chosen to work alongside youth crime and youth violence to be able to prevent it. We've noticed a huge increase here in Manawatu. I know it's happening everywhere, nationwide, but in Manawatu we've noticed there's a huge increase in a lot of youth crime, which is quite sad really, because we see so many of our young kids from the ages of 8 all the way to 24 who are just out there creating, committing violence. So much stuff is going on out there. So we as a rōpū want to try to come up with an idea where we want to create a youth hub in Highbury, because we actually don't have one, where we can, so that we can sort of bring in all our youth children and to work with them, to support them, to facilitate on behalf of them and to help resource them. So right now we're looking at we're going to be creating an event that should be happening in November. It's going to be a free event for everybody to attend in Highbury, and there'll be lots of fun, lots of activities, games, sports, free kai. And it's really to raise awareness for our youth and to get them to come along. To sort of, because a lot of our youth, they've got so much talent and they're so well gifted, and I think we need to sort of, try and bring them in, let them know that we're here for them, because a lot of them don't feel supported at all. That's half the reason why they're out here doing what they're doing. So, so if we can try and pull that in, that'd be great. And also, we've just joined forces with some members of the gangs here in Palmerston North, which they have really, because they're actually working also alongside Rangatahi. They're trying to make better changes and positive changes with them, just like how we want to, but they felt that they needed more of the community to sort of join with them, and we felt the same. We kind of felt that we needed more of them to sort of come on board with us, so it actually worked out really well. So yeah, so we had 2 huis with them, with the Black Flowers here in the Manawatu chapter, which, you know, they're a bunch of good people. You know, I know something can seem intimidating a lot, but they're actually just like us, where they're actually trying to make better changes too. So not only not for our youth, but just for everybody in general. So yeah, thank you.
And all of this is supported with a garden initiative that Iver Europe does in terms of growing food and having food cupboards. And Selena, we will move to feeding now. Nikki and Selena.
Tēnā koe I Marama, kai toko a Sierra tēnā kōrua. Tēnā he kai hoki. So our fielding advisory group started about 3 years ago. There were there was very limited actually resources out there, hence why we've asked for support and hopefully sustainability too with this group. So we've been working with the disabled and the aged care community within fielding. We've found that there has been that there are people at the margins that do need a lot of support, and we're the voices for them as well. We fiercely as a community, we need to hear their voices. They do come through, and there are ones out there within our group that do really need the help. Our kaumātua within our iwi, within our hapori, the cost of living, kai. We started out with Marakai on our own whenua. We asked for support as well for that. So now we're into 1, 2, 3, 4 gardens where we plant out Marakai, kamo, and so to feed our people, because that's what our iwi is all about, is kai iwi. And we were always like this in the past too. It's just a shame through colonisation, as you all know, a lot of our land has been confiscated and was taken. Hence why with what land that we do have left, we're growing on it, okay, and we're wanting sustainability for our people. So we have that kai. We also feed our hapori, our kaumātua, our iwi, and the support system here. We would have liked more help from the government, and we're still going through our treaty claims at the moment for that to occur. But that is just one project that we're working on at the moment. And I'll just pass you on to Nikki. This is our other community profile building, and she'll talk a bit more on the other groups we're working with.
And on the other side, you know, so obviously no one can do anything unless they're fed. But we also thought, this photo's come up a bit and it always looks like I'm telling someone off. Just Keisha. Or maybe I was telling the government off. I don't know. But it could have been, eh? But what we found is, especially over with COVID, it can't be ignored, it increased the isolation of community in general, and even in my own whānau, my own husband is immunocompromised, and he's only came out allowed out of the house into the house in the last 3 weeks. You know, there is people that have not seen outside of their own 4 walls, if they have 4 walls, in the last couple of years. So what we found is we had people who were coming along at the start and were able to be there, who have just, there is no way they could attend a meeting like this. It's still not safe. So how do we get their voices out there? We have to be the voices for people who can't come out. So what we have looked at is, you know, we got lost along the way, we've come back, there's been points where it seemed, as you say, far too overwhelming. And now we've got to the point where we need to target where these lost people might now start being, and we need to show them that there is still community there for them, and what that means. So we've taken a step back and want to show the marginalised that they are welcome. And how can we go about doing that is we're looking at doing both pamphlets and posters and like an awareness in community areas where they need to go. So like in our library, which we have the difficulty there, unfortunately, of fielding libraries just going under renovations. So it's actually in a temporary space, which we have, you can find we've got space there now, but it's harder for some, if you haven't been out and then you suddenly do get out and oh, the library's not here. So, you know, helping people realise that those things, or even in your supermarkets and your petrol stations or something, but the library one's going to have like a mural and then like an interactive space where you can be putting up, you know, what you like about your kamatu and what, you know, the positives of the community and how you're going to interact and how you'll be involved in them, because they've had a couple of years of forgetting that, eh? We've all had to remind why we are friendly fielding, and you know, I know a lot of people disagree with that. So bring it back. Why are we this, and why can we be involved, and why you are welcome? So even if it's just their first time out, they can still see that they're involved, even if they haven't physically been able to be. Yeah, where we're at. So yeah, it's probably the main one.
So you're embedding the violence education programs within this broader idea of community and high and what
Yes.
community feels like.
Because you're not opening up without a connection to someone,
Yeah,
and having lost that connection, so many have, we need to go back, we need to build that community first.
Yeah.
You're not going to talk to strangers.
I just want to mention to the Minister too, growing up in Fielding, it's been very hard because it's very white. Okay, it's very heavily farmed by farmers, and that, and for our people, we have struggled just to maintain our own there and growing kai and that as well. We're also up against the pollution of our awa and that
I
as well.
saw it as I flew over.
Yeah. So we've got people on the ground within our iwi working with the council and with Horizon. So
Yep.
we've been holding
Yep.
many meetings just recently
Yep.
about that, cleaning up our awa, just having clean water. At that time, I don't know if you know, but with the council are looking at putting a pyrolysis recycling there. We're not happy about that because that's more pollution on our land. And here we are, we wanted to grow and plant more marakai in a sustainable way and organically when we continually being pushed back as iwi. Here we are trying to, you know, provide for ourselves and sustain, and we keep getting pushed back all the time. We've had enough. And you know, quite frankly, our people are tired. We're over being nice now. We've been nice for over 150 years. Okay, we have given and we have given, and we just can't give anymore. So that's where we're at.
Where do you see pyrolysis?
It was pyrolysis, recycling. Yeah, so they've gone over, they've had these secret meetings, the council and that, not included us. We don't seem to be, you know, included in their meetings and that, and they go and they put it on our land without engaging with us.
Apartheid, can the government overrule them?
Oh, with three waters. It would be better if government and local government could have a good enough relationship across the country, relationship and agreement to work together to have clean water, soil, so on and so forth. But what the government is also up against is the
The whiteness.
yeah. And the narrative that drives and the movements that drives to oppose the sorts of government action that would help at a local level.
Yeah. We've had people like Mike Joy and that
Yep, yep.
and, you know, do all the testing and all that. I mean, we've got conclusive evidence here that our is covered.
Yeah.
You know, what are we going to do as a community? We seem to be pushing after these that all the time in terms of the council and Horizon.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It comes down to the health of our people.
Because a lot of them really don't care.
No.
Long, they don't care, they'll just keep flushing it in. At the end of the day, it's like, That's what I pay my taxes.
We need to understand, and this is where a Te Māori perspective and framework is going to be so crucial, is that violence that is done to land and water is the same perpetuated violence that is done to people and women in particular. The earth is our mother, and it all is driven by the same forces. That is violence. Polluting our waters is violence.
It's so transformative to hear you articulate this, Minister, because we were just going to say for us, for the community, violence prevention has taken the form of occupying the land, or being taken over by council. So that really also expands the definition of what violence prevention is. On one hand, it's been a challenge because that's meant that it's harder to focus on running education programs where your energy needs to be on the occupation.
I get it. It's both. It's like, on the one hand, all of your deep, incredible passion and efforts and energy from a community level can't continue while at the meantime the central forces keep putting the dirt in the other. It's just going to keep going into that. That energy is going to go into good things, but the rubbish is going to keep getting thrown. So that's where we have to do both, and we need the system changes and the grassroots work.
And on, can I add one, you might notice in our kōrero, that we left out our Rainbow community in general. And that's, I came on as representative for that. And basically, from talking with others in that community, it is from the whiteness and from everything else. And hey, Māori can look white too. Can't ignore that. But they're too frightened. We can help in our ageing, but in our ageing in the same time, we've got our rainbow community and even treatment by being rainbow in our retirement villages and in our things. But they're too scared. Yeah, they are too scared. So we're trying to help this community by taking the broadest approach. I know that seems against minority, but taking a broad.
No, I get what you're saying. We haven't made it safe yet.
No, it's not safe for them.
We haven't made it safe yet. I mean, in actual fact, we've made it quite violent for rainbow in
I
particular.
found that, going political, the last election when I was trying to decide whether building was safe to even stay.
Exactly.
I definitely was. Yes, and so that's why, and I'm quite fine to be that face for that reason, because I know there are a lot who do not want to be and shouldn't have to be. But so, yeah, we're focusing on bigger groups, but we can't.
I get it.
Some of them we can't.
Yeah, thank you.
And that's segues. Yeah.
Shall we move on to Lechin and
Welcome everyone. I would like to start with a Farsi poem, very short one, and translated in English, which it says: بنی آدم اعضای یکدیگرند که در آفرینش ز یک گوهرند، چو دزدی به درد آورد روزگار، دگر عضوها را نماند قرار. تو که از محنت دیگران بی‌غمی، نشاید که نامت نهند آدمی. The translation is: human beings are member of a whole, and in creation of one essence and soul. If one member is affected by pain, other members uneasy will remain. If you don't have any sympathy for human pain, the name of human you cannot retain. So this is just to say, like 1,000 years ago it was the same and now it's the same. So we should have the sympathy for each other. Me, Zahra, and Mariam, who couldn't be here today, Puja, we are part of the migrant group of Manawatu, desert group of Manawatu. After we were founded in 2021, we had a big bump because of COVID, which happened later, right after. Then we started our small advisory groups to see what our migrants from different communities want. regarding the family and sexual violence prevention. And what we had in the 4 small group that we had, what we got that there is a specific need for raising awareness, giving information, and I'm talking on behalf of all migrants, refugees, former refugees, international students, skilled migrants, and citizens and residents of New Zealand with migrant background. So there is definitely a need to raise awareness and letting them know by when they arrive what is their right as a woman, what is their right as rainbow community, what is their right as age, because like all of them can be involved in the migrant community anyway, and where they can reach out, where can they find support if they are experiencing violence, any sort of violence. And after our meetings, so we had the honor to, our main target group became just women from with former refugee background from Afghanistan mostly. So in February we had a meeting, we had a workshop to introducing Women's Center, which is in Palmerston North, to just letting them know what are the services provided there inside the Women's Center and what they can receive within Women's Center and outside Women's Center. And then again in March we had another Aotearoa and heavy one. So, but we are lucky to have a chance to have again like almost 30 women each time to attend this workshop, which it was a family violence education. It was provided in Farsi because we had a trainer from Iran online. But yeah, we have this workshop for almost 4 hours. So 2 hours of the workshop, and we had the honor, actually the food cart was provided within our community women. So it was to show them how they can empower themselves, how they can make them independent financially, which actually very helpful for stopping the preventing violence. And then there was a time for socializing as well. So, and this happened with the work of like 4 of us, which I was international student and now I'm temporary visa holder. We had people with refugee background, we have residents. So we, in a small group of 4 of us for advisory group, we made sure when we are talking, we have all people saying what they want and reaching out to all the type of migrant community that we have here. And besides from the in-person meeting that we had, so we come up because we needed community connection, community resource, and upskilling our community. So for that one, we come up with these workshops. We have our own like social media group, which is like we have 40 women in the group. Anything in Manawatu region, mostly in Parmi, regarding migrants or any chance that they can socialize, we inform them. If there is any centers that we know about it, anything like for example recently the MBIE had refreshed meetings for rewriting the strategic plan. So we always put information and we make sure there is Farsi, English, and Dari translation in it. But this comes from like a small group of us, mostly 3 of us and Puja. So, and we have done this till now, since less than a year. And what we got mostly, as all of us said, like main important thing is to be included. You know, if migrant women are included, like migrants are included, I think it will stop a lot of violence anyway, any future violence. And we wanted actually to make sure while we are educating our migrants, we need to educate our Pakia, in TV, like mostly at government level, that who we are, and to reach out and talk about them both sides. And of course, our idea was to have reached, because of the deadline of funding, we haven't reached that. But we wanted to make sure, as we said, we need something sustained. We wanted well-being day for women, at least twice a year, to have DHP, to have police, to have sexual violence specialists, to have artists, to show them, mostly because when we put the violence, it stops people to come. But if we change it, and we need connection, that's the thing. We could reach out to a small group because we didn't have enough of connections. So I'm involved with welcoming community, with a lot of groups. I've been involved with joint venture since last year. So I've been trying to do my best, but as migrants generally, Maoris, Pacific Group, they have been dedicating their life to economy, to research, to education, and we believe that if we are included, and when decision making happens, if we need, for example, safe place for women, we were asked that. But yeah, if we have proper community-led groups that they can provide support to migrants, it will be fantastic because they know the context, So sorry for going on and on. Zara?
Thank you. My name is Zara. Megan said mostly, and really appreciate it because women from refugee background, they come as a refugee to New Zealand. We have orientation in 6 weeks when they arrive in New Zealand, but everything is very fast. They don't remember what their rights is in New Zealand. After a while, because they cannot speak English, they cannot drive, they are not independent fully, and they receive violence from their family, they are dependent on husband or son or father because they can't live, and they get financially controlled. They can, and after for some young girls, they say they have to get married after certain age, but they don't know their rights. They don't need to it's what they want. And some women, they say in New Zealand, we want to be inclusive, the culture, the community, but the problem is the wider community, they don't accept us because of our outfit, we wear the scarf, or we are different, and they have been harassed from outside community, and they complain, police didn't trust them, and the language is another problem because they don't want to share with somebody. They know the language, but they cannot trust, and because they don't want to hear the story they happen to them from wider community, the community, oh, we heard you did this, not confidential.
Yes.
Yeah, and they were we always have been isolated from bigger community, and they says when we apply for a job, it's so hard because we are so different. And most of the time when they have interview, they get rejected, what they said. And they were we want to just not educating, because we have a social media group for everyone in our team. I think it's 17 women they are in the group. We always post every time we have meeting or any event is going on, or about everything, educating them, and they say it's not only one way; it should be two sides, and they should know about us as well, not we know about them, and they say about how to be part of the country. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
We will now move to our Wellington Rainbow Advisory Group.
Karen Kata me my kia kwe to the government to yes, no, thank you so very much, Professor Mohan, for all the help and everything that you've given us here. And we're not actually Wellington, we're actually Upper Hutt, but we the whole region of Wellington. So
I went out regionally.
Yes.
I went further. They went
too many other ones, but that's sort of beside the point. But yeah, so we're actually working on the housing for our Takatapui, I'll call them Takatapui. I'm so LGBTQIA+. That's such a long word. They'll just settle on Takatapui. And yeah, so we've got Takatapui whānau that are needing housing, jobs, that have mental health problems too, and they're not being helped. They're being to all the different, there's so many areas where they can get help, but they've been slabbed, no. All of those areas that I'm going, oh my God, no, hang on, no, that can't be things. So we're helping them with all of their issues and with their drug addiction.
Unfunded.
Exactly. So yes, so. So we're trying our best to help them in all their ways and everything. It's not easy. It's a hard, challenging group within our rainbow community, because we've got trans men, we've got lesbians, we've got gay guys, we've got transsexuals, and everybody's not coming on the same page. So, you're working with you're working with and I'm going, no, we are one. We are the one Takatapui, recognise yourself, check yourself, So it is challenging and everything, but I need to thank you so very much for the putea that you've allocated our group and everything. Thank you so very much. I'll hand it over to my beautiful helper here.
No, you're fine. I'm sitting over here. In this group itself, so whanakopere is what we've given the name, and so during this journey we were able to connect with people within the Takatapui community, both Māori and non-Māori. Here for us it was there are so many groups out there that are all fighting for the same cause. And what I personally found is that they're all on the same page, but it doesn't necessarily, for me I found it didn't, I'm going to sit. For me I found that it didn't necessarily have a tikanga based framework or observation, which meant that our Māori had nothing to connect to. And although Māori within those spaces will just continuously support regardless anyway. So what we came up with was we wanted to create workshops and little events that promoted basically the person. So basically the person before the term, the person before the gender, the person before the identity. And in that prevention, we wanted to really talk about waiwa. because everybody is talking about the tinana and about the hinengaro and the effects that violence has on those particular spaces and areas of a person. But we don't talk about the waiwa. We don't talk about the waiwa, the intergenerational waiwa, which is really, really important. And so when coming up with this strategy of awareness, I used a simple thing, and it was the poi. And the thing that I incorporated into this workshop was that, unbeknown to people who are non-Māori, that it's in fact the wehena of rangi and papa combined. And so that information and that knowledge, of course, stemmed the waiwa. And in that, I also taught whakapapa, because you can't go wrong with whakapapa, right? And with whakapapa and the whakapapa o poi, the fact that it, thank you to Aotearoa people, the fact that it's an external observation of tāne and an internal observation of wahine. And so that's where our respect and our dignity and our aroha was incorporated solely into it. Because I was saying to the group before, you can be made up and you can wear whatever you have, but if that respects self, that respects dignity and aroha isn't of self, then it's not of worthy. It's not worthy. So I just think that, yeah. I'll let you all ask questions later.
Selena, can I play your campaign now? So you all created a storyboard and built a campaign. So I'm just going to play briefly for you the campaign.
I had to survive. I had to make hard choices. Things have to change. There was no support. I had to sacrifice a lot. I'm tired. I'm over it. I'm done. I found hope. Aroha. I found my own. Be the pride, be the colour, be the rainbow, be you.